Kent Oldenburg from Colombia 1, the first group ever to go into training for the Peace Corps from 1961 to 1963. And I just want to say that I'm very happy to see that Peace Corps volunteers are now going back to Colombia again.
So my name is John Arango, and I was in Colombia from 1961 to 63, first in a community in the province of Antioquia, which is sort of north-central. It was later on, after I came to the University of New Mexico, and at some point we can talk a little bit about that training, but because we were training, I mean literally we had 400 trainees in one summer all being trained to do community development work. And after that was done, I said to the Peace Corps headquarters, you know, we probably ought to go take a look at what's actually happening to all these volunteers. So they, there was a sort of a down period, so they paid for me to spend 6 weeks in Latin America tracking down these volunteers that we've been training, or that we had trained, and finding out what they're actually were doing. And that's when I got, you know, solidified this insight that it was only a small number of the volunteers that were actually able to do what we trained them to do, and that the rest of them were, as I said, were doing wonderful things, but it wasn't community development.
My name is Phil Lopez. I was in Colombia 1 from 1961 to 1963. So our job was to work with each one of those groups and help them decide what it is they wanted to do, and then help them do it. So we built one school. We finished one health center that had already been started. We started a road, a rural road, which, by the way, that partner and I went back to San Joaquin. That was the name of the town, San Joaquin, Santander. We went back there in the summer of 2010. It'd been 43 years.
So it was the first time back?
First time back. In order for people to still be around, they were in their 80s. So there were 2 or 3 people who were still around. But most of the people, of course, were not. I talked about some people that we knew, and he said, she was my teacher. She was his teacher there. And so he takes out his cell phone and he calls her because he knows where she is. So we got to talk to her, even though we didn't get to see him. So that happened 2 or 3 times where we would say, you know, well, what about so-and-so? Well, they're not here anymore, but we know how to contact them. They'd take out their cell phone and we would call and just have a good time. Is that road we started, it's now complete. All the way to the northern part of the municipio, which was about 18 miles. And we also went out to the school. There's a road to the school now. When we built the school, everything was transported up there on muleback, but there's a road up there now. We left there in June of '63. We were told in training that if you were ever asked to be a godfather, either for a birth or a confirmation, you know you've been accepted. And I left with 6 godchildren, so I figured I had been accepted.
Hi, I'm Refugio Rochin. My nickname is Wilbur. I happened to be in a village, remote, visiting 2 volunteers, and a knock at the door. This was at a little mud-type cottage that they lived in. And I opened the door, and a peasant was there. He lowered his hat from his head, and he said, "Mister, our president is dead." And I expressed condolences for the death of the Colombian president, Valencia. I said, "Gee, I'm awfully sorry to hear this." He said, "Yes, our President Kennedy is dead." I was shocked, but also humbled by the fact that he wanted me to know, and I'll never forget the look on his face, his sadness, and then later peasants like him all over showed the same expression of sadness, coming up and embracing us with their condolences.
Thank you, very good.
Gail Gibson, I was a Peace Corps volunteer in 1962 and 64 in Manizales, Colombia, where I taught physical education and coached, and where I met my wife, Eloina.
Yes, I am Eloina Gibson from Colombia, and I met my husband there in the Peace Corps.
I'm Sue Farrington. I was in Colombia, 1962 to 64. I was in Barranquilla for 1 year working with university teaching English, and then I transferred to a rural group and worked on a project that made maids' uniforms for Sears Roebuck.
Fantastic, thank you.
Myron. I served in Colombia 1963 to 1965.
I'm Beverly Muskowski, Colombia, South America, 1963 to 65. Piandamo Cauca and Pupiales Nariño.
Dubinsky, I was a volunteer in Colombia from 1963 to 65. I worked in cooperatives, handicraft cooperatives, farm cooperatives in Manizales, the coffee country, and in Pasto, southern Colombia, where they made a lot of handicrafts. And then I was a volunteer leader in Barranquilla for a number of months. I hated that part because I lost my Spanish ability and started not seeing Spanish Colombians. I just saw volunteers. That was not fun.
Kay Kessel, and I was in Colombia in the Peace Corps from 1963 to 65, and I was there 3 months when President Kennedy was killed.